something or anything?
Nope, you don't have to do
Okay.
anything. Just smile. Welcome to the Founding Voices podcast. Oh no, I changed the title. It's now The Weird Octopus. Where is that coming from? A series of conversations with the humans who showed up before there was a map. I'm Perry, the founder of the Octopus Movement, and I believe nonlinear thinking is not just a way of creating possibilities, it's a way of being in the world. Each week, I speak with three founding members of our human mycelium who explore who they are and why they think differently, and how they're shaping their future that cannot be built in straight lines. Well, let's meet today's guest. Very happy to sit down with Jeffrey Brown. He's a fractional CTO. What that means, we will talk what a fractional CTO is. Enterprise architect, mentor, speaker, published author, cognitive writer. We will talk about that as well. Ambassador and founding member of the Octopus Movement, of course. Jeffrey's superpower is something I immediately resonate with. Sophisticated simplicity. For me, that is close to Wu Wei. And I want to dive into that with you, Jeffrey. I love that. In a world where technology often becomes bloated, disconnected, and overwhelming, he helps organizations to do something rare and powerful. Simply complexity without losing depth. And for more than 30 years, he has helped leaders align technology with business goals, turn development teams into fuel for growth and innovation, and create the kind of trust, clarity, and future ready systems that actually make people and companies thrive. I love what I love about Jeffrey is that he doesn't just build technology strategy, he builds understanding. He helps talented people stop working in fragments and start seeing the bigger picture, the whole picture. Jeffrey Brown, welcome to the podcast.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. And that was too long of an intro. I'm a very simple guy.
Let's before we go into that simplicity, let's go to question number one that I love to ask people. What is the octopus in you, Jeffrey? What is your nonlinear thinking? How does that work and operates
Yeah,
in you?
it's fascinating, right? And I watched enough of these that I knew this question was kind of coming, right? And I have to admit, I thought about it a little bit ahead of time. And I really kind of see two aspects here, right? And Perry, you and I know each other really well. So as you know, as I don't actually prefer the term nonlinear thinker, right?
Hmm.
Is because I see the whole system of thinking, right? And I switch from the divergent thinking for brainstorming and problem solving to convergent thinking to really act. And then when things go wrong, I switch back, right? So I love the fact that the octopus has all of these tentacles and it can reach out and it can grab things and pull those things in the world and use it as tools and things like that, right? So that ability, what I like to call omni-domain thinking, the ability to think beyond categories, that archetypal thinking, to be able to think across everything, pull them in and use them. Some of the patents I worked on were simply repurposing problems that have already been solved in one industry, but pulling them in into it to solve a problem in a new and unique way, right? So that octopus being able to pull things out. And the second part I would say is really that camouflage piece, that adaptability, right? Is
Ooh,
I am
yeah.
absolutely confident, right, and firm that I do not mask, I do not pretend, I do not be. I'm always authentically me. In fact, about a couple years ago, I worked with a guy named Nick, and he's an expert in the world of human, micro expressions, and teaches how people to read faces. And he's a human lie detector. And he talked to me for about 30 minutes, just one of these types of meetings, right? Just in my network. And after 30 minutes, he stopped me a period. He's like, Jeffrey, you might be the most authentic person I've ever met, right? I
Really?
I
Yeah.
don't mask, but I also have I had a VP once tell me, he's like, Jeffrey, you have the ability to talk to executives, to engineers, to salespeople, to customers, and you'll tell them all the same things, but use different words, and they all walk away saying, that made so much sense, right? So it's really being able to camouflage myself and to be able to be this at everybody's level at any time I need to, that really brings myself to them rather than expecting everybody to come to me. So those are two of my kind of octopus ways of thinking.
And what an octopus way to explain this to camouflage yourself to be your authentic self.
Yes. It seems counterintuitive, right?
Right? Isn't that fun? So it's so being let's zoom into this. So your
Yes.
authentic self is a topic that a lot of people talk about. What is the authentic self? But you created an extra layer on top of that by being your authentic self, but adjusting at the same time.
Right.
And
An octopus that goes camouflage doesn't become a non-octopus,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
They just adapt to that particular environment. I adapt my communication to whoever I'm working with, whether it's a fifth grader that I'm working with robotics, or a CEO that's trying to figure out how to do how to get the funding for their business. Right? It doesn't matter. I just use the words that make sense to them, so that I'm always adapting to their things. But me authentically, that's authentically me.
That is authentically you. And I just wanted to say that's authentically you. And can you then I'm curious how you would describe what authenticity means.
For me, authenticity means me, just being me, right? If I'm me, myself, and I, right? If I put it this way, right, is and I teach this in my mentoring and pieces, because I'm a mentor as well for several executives and for several professionals. But when I put my head down on my pillow at night, the only person I have to be able to accept and feel like I am truly who I am is me. It's the only
Mhm.
person I have to respond to, right? Not my wife, not my children, not no one in my world. It's me. Authentic Authenticity for me is living my truth.
Do you think do you think a lot of people live their authentic life? How do you look at others? And I know you. I think I know you, Jeffrey. So I'm hesitant to
I'm
ask
pretty
this
simple. It's
question.
easy.
No, you're not pretty simple. I'm hesitant to ask this because for myself it feels that this is not a fair question to ask, and I don't
Okay, go
even know
for it.
why. But how do you see the authenticity of others? Do you think a lot of other people are authentic?
So I wrote this story when I was 22 years old. It was called The Enchantment, right? And it's about a knight and a wizard, and the wizard has to transform the knight into an animal to survive, right? That's part of the premise of the story. But the rules of the engagement is that the knight has to choose an animal that somebody will recognize him and call out his name. So that's a really powerful story, because even at 22 years old, I was thinking about this, right? And in that scenario, you can't choose the animal you want to be. You have to choose something in a way that Perry sees me, right? Which means I have to know Perry so well to know how he sees me, to be able to say that this is what Perry knows of me, which starts with, am I truly expressing myself and living my truth in a way that you can see that, right? If I take my wife, for example, right? Does she see me the same way I think that she sees me? It's a pretty powerful question, right?
Does he?
I hope that she does. I think that she does, right? We've been married for 22 years, so she gets me pretty well by now,
I may
right?
hope so, right?
Right. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, do we ever really know how other people see us? When I see people, right, and I do see them either go up on stage, or they talk to a customer, or they talk to things, right, is they I do see people masking. I do see people put that mask on
Right?
and be
Yeah.
who they want to be in front of that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
I don't do that because, Perry, it's too hard. I don't want to have to keep track of how many different things of what I say, right? I'm honest to a fault, because I would rather tell you something, than whatever it is, and not have to try to make something up, because then I have to remember all those versions in my head.
What kind of animal do you think I would give to you? In what kind of animal do not the animal itself, but what kind of animal would I think about when I see you?
I don't know, right? Because I mean, I'd have to sit down and think about that a little bit. But I have thought about what I might turn myself into, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the one thing that kind of comes to mind is kind of a raven, right? Is the
Oh,
ability to
wait,
problem
wait,
solve, and
wait, wait, wait. It's so cool. And it's easy to say that, but I was thinking about a bird. I was thinking about a raven. I was thinking about multiple birds, but one of them was a raven.
There you go.
Cool, huh?
Yes. See, well, that's because we know each other so well.
And it's but this is interesting. We know each other very well because maybe I think I'm my authentic self. Recently, someone asked me in an interview, when can you be truly yourself? I'm like,
You get
always.
what you get.
This is it. Sorry, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but this is what it is. Um, is it that reason that we connect so well because we're both maybe just ourselves and that's it? Is that the easy connection we both have with each other? What do you think?
I think there's two pieces of it. I think that's an aspect of it, right? We always know what to expect with each other, but also the with that becomes the ability to just be completely unfiltered, right? And you always know what you're going to expect. Like you said, right? I'm talking and you said, wait, stop, right? And I did, right? Because I know you well enough. I know where you're at, right? When we first got on the call before we even joined, I said, where's the nail polish, right? Is I need you to be you, right? And
Yeah.
that's I wasn't it wasn't there, but I can call you out on that because we're at a level where we can just have those conversations.
Did you know that wearing nail polish is something special? You need to be I cannot just wear nail polish. I need to be in a kind of flow. It
Mhm.
does something to you. It's not just, oh, let me put nail polish on because
Yeah.
I have an interview.
Yeah, it's not a routine, right? I'm
It's
putting my
no.
pants on in the morning because I have to, right? I'm putting
Yes.
nail polish on because
Please do. Yeah.
I'm presenting myself, right? This is who I want to be, right? This is this is who I want to be at that moment. I will tell you, right, when I was young and I lived in my teens, right, my late teens and early 20s, is I wore nail polish on my one of my fingers, my
What
pinky.
color, Jeffrey?
I often did black like some of the photos you have, right?
Hmm.
But it was really what I had on, right? Because I didn't have a lot of colors. I'm a pretty
Look,
simple guy, but I did it just because it was something unique, something different, right? It was me. It was a little way of to kind of identifying myself in a different way of being just who I wanted to be.
look at us, two middle-aged white male dudes talking about nail polish. I love it.
There you go.
You said already several times, I'm just a simple guy. Um, that's of course not the case. Um, it's just how you would like to approach what a simple guy is. And why do you why do you see yourself as just a simple guy? Is that because of your sophisticated simplicity, which is really you? So you look at yourself in a sophisticated simplicity way as well, and therefore you're just a simple guy. Where is that coming from? What does that mean?
Well, I think there's a couple there. One, I'm a minimalist. Okay. So, I mean, everything I own could sit in a box, right? A small box that I could carry around, right? Is I don't have possessions. Everything I have serves a purpose. There's a need behind it. And there is a difference between simple and easy. Okay. It's not easy to be simple always, right? But the thing with it is you can take very complex things and one of the things I find with my mentoring and executive coaching I do and everything like that, there's a very simple set of rules, right? I mean, if you look down, we're all carbon-based creatures, right?
Hmm.
We may be a complex build of that carbon-based thing, right? But the core basics are very simple. My principles are simple. My lifestyle is simple. My decision making, I can come up with things in complex decisions because I look at everything and put it all together, and then I'm taking one simple choice to move forward, right? So it's a philosophy, really. And I was fortunate that one of my friends gave me in my mid 20s one of my favorite books by Deepak Chopra, The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
And I took and read. It's a very small book, but I read one chapter every night, right? So I could absorb it and take it in, and it really just became that kind of way of life for me. Is that it really is that just because life appears complex doesn't mean that you have to be, right? You take the simplest form of a creature like an earthworm, right? That earthworm, yes, you look at the mechanics of it, you look how it works and everything like that, but to look at it, it's a pretty simple creature, right? You can you can have. Let me put it this way, right? It used to be that the people used to believe that the world was flat.
Yeah.
That was true,
Hmm.
right? You asked people, you observed things, they looked at right, that was the truth. Now it wasn't fact, right? Factually, it was spherical, but that was the truth that they believed. My truth is that I'm very simple. I'm a very simple man. Um, I my thought process and everything tends to be very simple. How I make decisions, I boil things down. I think you can be both simple and sophisticated at the same time.
Do you know the book Obvious Atoms?
No,
This little book. Oh my God, Jeffrey. It's a very thick book. Look at this.
I love that.
This book was first published in, it's very new, 1916. And it's one of the bestsellers books since 1916, and it's about obvious atoms. And please read this book, or I will send it to you, or I will gift it to you. You will love this because this is Jeffrey. Obvious atoms works in advertising and goes into simplicity as well. Whereas, and that's what I want to discuss with you, when you come into organizations, it's everything but simplicity often.
It
If
often
if if
is,
if I'm
but
in a
here's the thing,
meeting,
Perry, is a lot
yeah,
of people overcomplicate things,
yeah,
right? And a lot of what I'm doing is just taking that complexity and thinking of, right, is yes, there's all these things going on, but really it comes down to what's the one decision you can make next, right? The one thing I realize is I only have one set of hands, so I can only do so much at single time, right?
yeah.
So it's that matter of seeing through the noise and listening to it, right? Think of an orchestra where you're listening to all these beautiful instruments play, but you want to mentally focus on the one instrument, right? It's that ability to do that that I think is profound.
And that's what Obvious Adams does. And in advertising, he sits down and he thinks, what is the obvious thing? What is really going on? And what is, and the thing is, in the complexity in how we think, we don't see that anymore. Simplicity, the obvious. And it's a real gift. It's a work of art to see the simplicity. And and that, I think, defines who you are, and you're able to remove the noise and see exactly what's going on. And that's my question: when you come into companies, organizations of today's world, if I'm invited to come to a meeting in a company because we're talking about think tanks, and they want the advice of the Octopus Movement, and I'm in that kind of meetings, I'm always surprised how there's a layer of complexity that is not really complexity but just noise, and where
Yes.
people are just talking, not because it's complicated or it's important that they want to say something. They just want to talk, and apparently that's a way of working to make sure you can keep your job or something, or you can stay at the table. What do you think when you cut through the noise and you're in a meeting like that? What are your thoughts when you see a lot of noise happening?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes down to experience, right? I mean, you take a knife, right? For example, I mean, if you look at a knife itself, it's sharpened edge of metal that's been, compacted and folded and hardened and everything like that, and it's cutting through something, right? Like if you're cutting through vegetables or something like that, you're cutting through that process, right? there's actually a lot going on there. But once you've learned it, once you have the experience of it, once a chef learns how a knife works, how to hold a knife, right? That can get very, very, you see some of those knives, the chefs, they just chop, 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 right? They're really, really fast with it, right? But that's the experience. What I'm bringing to the table is that level of experience that really helps me focus on the things. I've heard the noise so much that I know the difference between noise and I can really zero in. And a lot of it comes down to understanding the right questions to ask,
Hmm.
right? And that's where the experience comes in.
Ask me the right question right now that pops up to mind with regards to what we're doing right now. What comes to mind immediately? I'm curious. And you can also say skip Perry, it's
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of what I do when I come into the things, right, is here's the one of the key things is I listen first,
Mhm.
right? Is I spend more time listening before I act because I'm gathering all the information and then I know how to act with this, right? Is what I hope that you know, I hope what we're doing here in this will outlive us, right? I mean, I have an 18-year-old son,
Yeah,
and
tell me about your son because you're moving houses and things are happening as we
there's a
speak.
lot happening, right? And it's interesting because I've worked from home now for about 7, 8 years, right? From before COVID, right? I was working from home. So my son he's 18 now. He's about to graduate from high school and he's been accepted at Oakland University in Michigan, right? So we're living in Colorado right now, and we're going to move this summer so that I can have the next 4 years with him. But one of the things I found fascinating is he's been exposed to me working at home. Right, he's overheard my conversations. Heard me talk to CEOs and leaders and everything like that. And I've been in the tech field as a CTO. He wants to go into the technology field too. But here's the thing, Perry. Right, is at 17 years old, he's 18 now. He had decided he's like, "Dad, I can teach myself all the tech stuff, right? There's ways to learn all of it online, right? There's
Hmm.
access to everything. He can learn all that stuff. And I don't have a college degree, so he knows he can get ahead without that. But he also understands the world has changed since I was his age, right? And so he's like, but if I look at what dad does, and even though dad's in the technical field, he's like, the number one thing he does is communication.
Yeah.
So he's going to go get a communication degree because he realizes he's like the one thing I literally can't teach myself is to communicate. So he's going to go get a communications degree, and his justification behind that is like that. If I get an interview and I'm up against five other guys, he's like, they're going to hire the one that can articulate, can explain themselves. He's like, when I have a great idea in the future, nobody's going to listen to that idea if I don't have a way to be able to explain it and make sense of it. So he's like, of all the skills dad has, his communication skill is the most powerful one that I want to learn. And my book about cognitive writing, my son's never read it, right? And it's all about communication. So it's fascinating, right? I'm curious at the point where in his life he will sit down and
At
feel
some
a
point
need
they
to
will
pick it
read
up,
it.
right? And all of this will start to click for him, right? And I've never pushed him on that, right? It'll do it
Nope.
on his time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
How about your kids, right? How is what you're doing right now reflective or impactful, or what are you doing that's important that you feel is important to your kids?
Well, we it's language to start with, so the whole nonlinear linear perspective is very common in our house with the kids. So I remember one time Ola coming home. He was like 15 or 14, and the school photographer was there, and he wanted to be on the photo with the whole classroom with his sunglasses on. I was like, that's cool. And the photographer said no. And he came home and he said, well, the photographer is a bit linear, but I listened to him. And therefore it's fine, rather than it's so stupid I can't wear my sunglasses. So language is a thing, and I think also that they see me working constantly but having fun. They hear me laughing, talking to people. I'm sharing stories that are like, oh, and this founding member who's now at the Mission Control Center of NASA is going to talk about the Artemis 2. And so they hear all these cool stories of other people all over the world. And I think
And
that's
that's that
something.
exposure, right? They're realizing, right? Because at their age, they don't realize how many fascinating people are in the world, right?
No.
They only know about their world. And one thing I want to go back, we're going to be nonlinear here for a second, right? I'm going to go back to the beginning and talking authenticity for a moment, right? Because you talked about something there with your kids and the language and things. You're multilingual, right?
Hmm.
So when you switch languages, you're not being unauthentic, right?
No.
No. So and to get to understanding, I have a three rule system for that, right? And it's not one I mean it's just common sense. It's what everybody knows, right? Is communication starts with comprehension.
Hmm.
If you're not speaking to me in English, I'm not going to comprehend what you're
No.
saying, right?
No.
So we're not going to get very far. But then, if we're speaking in a way that we can comprehend each other, then we're transferring information, right? You're giving me information, you're giving me facts, you're giving me data, but it only clicks when it switches to understanding, right? And that doesn't always happen. We can be having a conversation about the fact that, hey, it's going to rain tomorrow. Well, I'm in Colorado, you're not, right? Rain for me tomorrow isn't rain for you. Even the time
Yeah.
of day it is
Yeah.
different, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
our truths are different, right? And the data can be different, and it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. But if we sat down and understood why it rained and why it's raining in the local area, we're switching to understanding. So that ability to talk to it, and I had this great, I have a very good friend of mine in the Netherlands. Sorry, you're not the only one, right? But I've been to his house a few times and watched his teenagers grow. And at various stages, I would have dinner with them, and they would practice speaking English. And I saw them get better over the years. But it was fun when they're like, "Oh, what's the word I want?" Right? or what's that word you just said mean? Right? And it was just a lot of fun, having them learn English from an English speaker.
Hmm. And beautiful to see. We were an expat family to China when our kids were young, and there I learned that before the age of 7, kids are like a sponge.
Oh yeah.
They It doesn't matter. They
Yeah.
can learn like 9 languages at the same time.
Well, that's my infant mode theory in my book, right? In Appendix A of my book, I have the infant mode theory that, infants are the most genius parts of anywhere in our lives, right? Is that ability to recognize their mom, right? Be able to understand caregiver, being able to understand archetypes and all that stuff, right? Is that's when we're learning. And a lot of my book is about, trying to reactivate that mode, right? Help people get back to that level of understanding where our minds were so easy to pick up. So we've got a few minutes left here, right? And I don't want to run out of time, but what are the key things you wanted to accomplish here, right?
into here, I want to have this feeling that I'm having right now, and
Okay.
that's fun. I'm enjoying having a conversation with you. I'm enjoying to go wherever we go, and I prepared some questions that look at them once, and I didn't use one of the questions. Um, for me, this is about you know connecting. If we really truly connect, then it's perfect, and I think that happened. And by the way, you just spoke about your book, Cognitive Writing. Of course, I will link the book underneath the video. And we have now a nonlinear library in the Octopus Movement, and your book is there. You don't even know that, but your downloadable version of the book is in our nonlinear library, so people can go there and download your book. But I will put it in the comments as well. I have another important question that I always ask, and you know what's coming now. Um, I love this. If you could whisper a sentence into everybody's ear at the same time in their own language, what would it be?
Uh, I mean, my biggest thing that has worked for me my entire life is really just being true to myself. Right. I was early on. I had a fortunate that my father owned a business, and we lived outside in Michigan. We lived outside of the big Buick factory that was there at the time. We'd
Hmm.
have workers come through, and they were paid really really well for just factory based work stuff, and they hated their jobs, Barry. And I told myself at that young age, I will never work a job that I don't like. Right. If we spend way too much time there, right? In our business, in our world, at working, that if we're not enjoying it, it's not worth it to me, right? My values were there. That's my values. Maybe that one doesn't work for everybody, but that was important to me. So live your truth. I think that's the important thing that I would whisper to everybody.
So if it all of a sudden happens to you that you hear a whisper, live your truth, it's Jeffrey Brown saying that to you. Um, Thank you for being here, Jeffrey, not
Absolutely.
just in the podcast, but in the movement as a founding member and also very much as a very good friend. Um, if you're listening to this and you feel a spark, follow it. It's very important. Nonlinear thinking is not a strategy, it's a kind of love and it grows where we share it. And I'm positive of that.
And
Thank
connect
you.
with me. I'm happy to have people connect with
And
me.
connect with Jeffrey Brown, people.
Yes,
Read
absolutely.
his book and just connect with Jeffrey, have fun, have a conversation, and you will see what happens. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.